Welcome back to LeapTalk English, the place where real conversations help your English grow naturally. I'm Mary.
And I'm Albert. And Mary, can I be honest about something before we start?
You're always honest, Albert. Sometimes too honest.
Fair point. But I just want to say, I have been exhausted lately. Like, deeply, quietly exhausted. And I don't even have a dramatic reason for it.
Albert, I think you just introduced our topic better than I could have.
Did I accidentally do something useful?
You did, because what you just described, that deep, quiet exhaustion without a clear reason, that is exactly what millions of people are feeling right now. And there's actually a name for it.
Burnout.
Burnout. And today, that's exactly what we're talking about. Why is everyone so burned out? And what, if anything, can actually help?
Because I think a lot of people are walking around feeling completely drained, and they're not sure if something is wrong with them or if something is wrong with the world around them.
And the answer might be both.
Which is not exactly comforting, but it is honest.
And honest is what we do here. So, as always, just relax, follow the conversation, and let your English grow naturally as you listen. We're speaking at a clear B2 level, so everything will feel comfortable and natural.
And don't forget, at the end of the episode, we have our word tour, where we slow things down and explain the most useful words and phrases from today's conversation.
So, stay with us for that. And if LeapTalk English is helping your English grow, please subscribe and share this episode with someone who might need it.
All right, let's get into it.
So, Albert, when people hear the word burnout, they usually think of one thing: overworking.
Right, the image is always someone sitting at a desk at midnight, surrounded by coffee cups, completely falling apart.
Very dramatic, very cinematic.
Very relatable for some people, but I think the reality of burnout in 2026 looks a little different.
Much more quiet, much more everyday.
Exactly. It's not always the person working 80 hours a week. Sometimes it's the person doing a perfectly normal amount of things and still feeling completely empty by Thursday.
And that version of burnout confuses people because they look at their life and think, I'm not even that busy, so why do I feel like this?
And that confusion makes it worse because now, on top of being exhausted, you feel guilty for being exhausted.
Which takes more energy, which makes you more exhausted.
It's a very unhelpful cycle.
It really is. So what is actually causing this? Because I think it goes much deeper than just working too hard.
Much deeper. I think one of the biggest reasons people are burned out right now is the amount of mental energy modern life requires just to function normally.
Yes, and this is something people don't talk about enough. It's not just physical tiredness, it's cognitive overload.
Your brain is constantly processing information, emails, notifications, news, social media, decisions, comparisons, opinions, all of it, all day, every day.
And your brain was simply not designed for that volume of input.
Not even close. And the exhausting part is most of it feels small in the moment. One notification is nothing. One scroll is nothing. One quick email is nothing.
But 1,000 small things add up to something very heavy.
And by the end of the day, your brain has made hundreds of tiny decisions and processed enormous amounts of information, and it is completely depleted.
Even if you spent the whole day sitting down.
Which is why so many people feel tired in a way that sleep doesn't fully fix.
And that is one of the signs people miss. When rest stops being restful, that's a signal worth paying attention to.
Because normal tiredness goes away after a good night's sleep. Burnout doesn't.
It's still there in the morning, waiting for you.
Very patiently, very unhelpfully.
And I think there's another layer here, and that's the pressure to always be productive.
Oh, yes, this one is huge right now.
Because we live in a culture that treats productivity like a personality trait. Like the busier you are, the more valuable you are as a person.
And if you're not optimizing something, your morning routine, your diet, your sleep, your goals, you feel like you're falling behind.
Even your rest has to be productive. You can't just sit quietly and do nothing. That has to be meditation. That has to be mindfulness. That has to have a purpose.
Rest with a 5-step plan.
Exactly, and that is exhausting because your brain never actually gets permission to switch off completely.
And over time, without real rest, even the things you used to enjoy start feeling like effort.
Which is another sign of burnout that people often miss when things that used to bring you joy start feeling like obligations.
You used to love reading. Now you open a book and read the same paragraph 4 times.
You used to enjoy cooking. Now, even choosing what to eat feels overwhelming.
You used to like talking to people. Now even a short social interaction leaves you needing to lie down.
And you're not lazy, you're not ungrateful, your system is just overloaded.
And it's sending you very clear signals. The problem is most people push through those signals instead of listening to them.
Because stopping feels like failure or weakness or falling behind.
So what actually helps? Because I don't think the answer is just take a vacation.
No, although a vacation doesn't hurt.
It does not hurt, but you're right. You can take a 2-week break and come back to the exact same conditions and feel burned out again within days.
Because the conditions didn't change, only the location did.
So what needs to change?
I think the first thing is this: learning to recognize the difference between being tired and being burnt out, because they need different responses.
Tiredness needs rest. Burnout needs something more.
It needs a real reduction in what is draining you, not just a pause, but an actual reduction.
Which means looking honestly at your life and asking, what is costing me the most energy right now? And is it worth what it's costing me?
And some things will be worth it: your work, your family, your responsibilities.
But some things won't be, and those are worth examining.
And the second thing I think helps is protecting what psychologists call recovery time. Real recovery, not scrolling your phone on the sofa and calling it rest.
Because that is not rest. That is just exhaustion in a horizontal position.
Exactly. Real recovery means giving your nervous system actual silence, a walk without headphones, time in nature, a conversation that isn't about productivity or problems.
Things that don't require output, just experience.
And the third thing, and this one is harder, is giving yourself genuine permission to not be okay for a while.
Because a lot of burned out people are spending enormous energy pretending they're fine.
And pretending takes energy you don't have.
Letting yourself say, I am genuinely exhausted and I need things to be lighter for a while is not weakness.
It's actually one of the most intelligent things you can do for yourself.
Because you cannot pour from an empty cup, which I know is a phrase people say a lot, but
Because it keeps being true.
it keeps being true. And I think wherever you are today, if you're running on empty, this conversation is a small reminder. You're not broken, you're just running on a system that needs some genuine care.
And that care is not a luxury, it is maintenance. It is necessary.
And it starts with being honest with yourself about how you actually feel.
Which is always the hardest and most important first step. Okay, let's move into our word tour.
Let's do it.
Word tour.
Let's start with the word at the heart of today's conversation, burnout. Burnout means a state of deep physical and emotional exhaustion caused by long periods of stress or overload.
For example, after months of overworking, she finally reached complete burnout.
Or, burnout doesn't always come from doing too much. Sometimes it comes from doing too much of the wrong things. Repeat after us. Burnout.
Burnout.
Next, cognitive overload. Cognitive overload means your brain is receiving and processing more information than it can comfortably handle.
For example, constant notifications and news can cause cognitive overload without you even realizing it. Or, cognitive overload often explains why people feel exhausted even after a quiet day. Repeat, cognitive overload.
Cognitive overload.
Next, depleted. When you are depleted, it means your energy or resources have been used up completely and very little is left.
For example, by Friday evening, he felt completely depleted and needed the whole weekend to recover. Or, burnout leaves people feeling emotionally and physically depleted. Repeat, depleted.
Depleted.
Next, a very useful phrase, push through. To push through means to continue doing something despite feeling tired, difficult emotions, or strong resistance.
For example, she kept pushing through the exhaustion instead of stopping to rest. Or, sometimes pushing through is necessary, but not always wise. Repeat, push through.
Push through.
Next, overloaded. When something is overloaded, it means it has been given more than it can handle.
For example, his schedule was so overloaded that even small tasks felt impossible. Or, an overloaded nervous system needs real rest, not just distraction. Repeat, overloaded.
Overloaded.
Next, recovery time. Recovery time means the period you allow yourself to rest and restore your energy after something demanding.
For example, she started protecting her recovery time by keeping Sunday completely free. Or, without enough recovery time, stress builds up faster than you realize. Repeat, recovery time.
Recovery time.
And finally, running on empty. To be running on empty means to continue functioning even though you have used up all your energy or emotional resources.
For example, he had been running on empty for months before he finally asked for help. Or, running on empty for too long makes even small problems feel impossible. Repeat, running on empty.
Running on empty.
And those were today's Word Tour words and phrases.
Together, they really capture everything we explored today: exhaustion, overload, rest, and the quiet courage it takes to admit that you need to slow down.
And remember, understanding these words gives you the language to talk about your own experience, in English and in life.
So, wherever you are today, if you're tired, give yourself permission to say so. Rest is not a reward, it is a requirement.
This is Albert.
And this is Mary. Thank you so much for listening to LeapTalk English. We'll see you in the next one.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.